Hi, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Allied Components Works ICM14002 isolated DC voltmeter. I found this module when I found on Tindy the USB backhauler or backhauler USB made by Allied Components Works, and I did a separate video on that. That's a USB to SPI interface prototype board. But I found this module, and it's a completely isolated voltmeter that has a SPI interface to talk to it. And if I want to talk to my measure some voltages on my computer, then I can connect this up with the SPI backhauler to talk to it. Now, you say, why do I want an isolated voltmeter? So if you're measuring the voltages within a battery pack, you need an isolated system. So I have a 48 volt backup battery pack, and I want to monitor each of those voltages together. Now I'm going to show you a little bit on how I did this in this prototype board and a small AA battery pack, just as an example. Just to review what I've done, I've connected this backhauler USB to SPI interface prototype board over here to the voltmeter module, just to show you as a demonstration. Now I'm going to put two of these modules right on this prototype board, and I'm going to hang off another two on another piece of perf board, because unfortunately that's all that fits on there. And then I'm going to have a 4 volt 4 battery monitoring system for my 48 volt battery pack. There's plenty of room to put a couple of extra resistors on that board to expand the range of this module, as it only goes up nominally to 10 volts. Now, this module is pretty good, and at 10 volt range, each bit coming back represents 1 millivolt, which is super plenty for the project I'm doing. Now I've set this up, and you can see I have my 2 voltage sense wires coming out there. And so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with a little AA battery pack, just as an example. So I've connected up the leads to part of my AA 8 module battery pack, and so I can actually sense, in this case, just 2 of the batteries and see what their voltage is. And I'll show you real quick what that looks like on the eval kit for the Silicon Labs chip. So this is the evaluation tool for the Silicon Labs CP2130 USB to SPI bridge, and I went over this in my video on the backhauler. I'm just using this as an eval way to show you what I'm doing with my voltage sensor here. So just to see that it's talking, okay, I've set up the frequency for this voltmeter module, which is about 400 kilohertz. I've set the chip select to 0 as it's wired, and I'm just going to see this talking, and I'm going to send this command A100, which is actually a command to get the temperature internally to that device. And I get a feedback, or I get a back reading of 012F, which in decimal is 303, and subtract, and that's degrees Kelvin basically of the module, so that's 30 degrees Celsius. So it's a little bit warm in here, and in the chip module it's a little bit warm. So I'm going to change the command to read A000, and that's going to get me the voltage feedback that I want. And I get a reading of 0A70. Now 0A70 is hexadecimal, and that is equivalent of 2,672. So that's how many millivolts I'm reading for 2 batteries. So that's 2.672 volts. And you can see millivolts is pretty good reading for this setup. Now I'm going to change the voltage to more batteries, and we'll see what it reads. So this setup had basically measured the voltage of 2 batteries, and so I'm going to jumper this over here, and then we'll basically have 4 batteries in the loop, and we'll see what the feedback is. So I did the reading, and I got a reading of 14F0 in hexadecimal, which is 5,360 or 5.36 volts. So that's 4 batteries. You can see my voltage has jumped up. Now we're going to do something that's super cool about this module. We're going to totally measure the middle of a battery pack and in the opposite direction. So when I started this, I had the red wire connected to the positive most terminal. But since this is an isolated voltmeter, it doesn't matter where in the module I'm measuring it to. So I'm going to switch it, and I'm actually going to measure in the middle of the pack, and interestingly I'm going to measure it backwards, because it doesn't matter. This module will read in both polarities, and we'll see that we basically get a negative 2 volts, and I'll show you how that looks. So now with this setup, I get a reading, and it's F582, which is kind of interesting, but that's in 2's complement number in hex, and it's telling me that there's a negative value there. So that number actually equates to 62,850, but when I take the 2's complement of it, it really is saying it's minus 2.685 volts. So again, with this module, it doesn't matter, it's completely isolated. I can measure any voltage inside the middle of a battery pack, and I don't have to worry about ground references or anything. So I'm going to set this up in a little piece of software I'm going to write with the Silicon Labs libraries, and I'll show you those in a second, to monitor my battery pack when I'm charging it and make sure all of the modules are coming up at the same time. So you can see Silicon Labs provides a complete set of C libraries, DLLs, everything you need to write a little bit of software to communicate through the backhaller. And I'm going to tie this together with the backhaller and 4 of these voltage modules, and be able to monitor all of my batteries independently instead of just the total overall voltage, and I can see what's going on with my pack. So that's what I wanted to share about the ICM14002 isolated voltage module. You can see it's completely potted, it's tested and completely isolated, so there is really no danger if you set it up and wire it correctly that you're going to fry anything out. In fact, Allied Components Works even has a little eval board with the backhaller and just to fit this module if you're interested. But since I'm going to put 4 together, I probably won't use this module, but I was going to play with it initially and I ended up getting it. So you can buy these things from Allied Components Works or the backhaller on Tindy, and just do a Google search and you'll find them, and you can pick up one of these modules, or a couple of them, or 4 of them like I'm doing, to make this battery pack sensor module.